As I waited for the link to come through, my mind raced with thoughts of how I could drag this scam on even longer. I had him right where I wanted him, desperate for my money, eager to seal the deal, yet still unaware that I had absolutely no intention of paying. I was enjoying the game more than I expected, and the longer I kept him on the line, the more fun it became. This guy had no idea what he was up against. When the link arrived, it was almost anticlimactic. It wasn't a flashy website like I'd imagined, just a simple payment gateway with a 100 to start banner. But what caught my attention was the urgency in his next message. All right, just enter your card details and you're all set. The faster you deposit, the faster you start making money. Don't miss out. There it was, the moment of truth. I wasn't about to hand over my credit card details, of course, but I also wasn't done toying with him. This was the moment I could really start to push his buttons. I didn't click the link right away. Instead, I typed, "I'm about to do it. Just a second. I want to make sure this is safe. Can you tell me more about the platform's security? How do you protect my personal info?" James seemed to slow down for the first time. His response was delayed by a few minutes. It was as if he had to scramble to come up with a convincing answer. "We use top-of-the-line encryption and work with trusted financial institutions," he wrote back. "Your information is completely safe. There's no need to worry at all." "Good to know," I replied, dragging it out further. "But can you give me the name of one of these trusted institutions? Just to be sure." He didn't respond right away. This time, I could sense the tension on the other side of the screen. James had clearly hit a wall. He was so used to dealing with people who were already willing to invest that I could tell he wasn't prepared for the barrage of questions I was throwing at him. "Finally," he replied, "it's a private partnership with several banks, but I can't disclose their names for security reasons. I hope that's okay." I couldn't help but smirk. The lack of transparency was a red flag a mile wide, but I wasn't done yet. The more I questioned him, the more uncomfortable he seemed. Every time he responded, his answers got more generic, more scripted. "You've got to understand," he continued, "this opportunity isn't for everyone. It's for people who are serious about making money and who aren't afraid to take a little risk. If you're not ready to invest, that's totally fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when everyone else starts cashing in." I could almost feel his desperation, and it made the whole thing more thrilling. The longer I kept him on the line, the more chances I had to expose the cracks in his scam. I wasn't just wasting his time, I was making him work harder and harder for nothing. "Oh, I'm serious," I replied, feigning hesitation. "I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. This is my first time trying something like this, so I just need to be extra cautious." "Trust me," James said. "Once you see the returns, you'll be glad you did it. You've got to act fast. Don't wait too long, or you'll miss out." I could feel the impatience in his tone now. He was pushing, trying to rush me into making a decision, but I wasn't going to let that happen. Instead, I threw another curveball. "Tell you what," I typed. "I've been reading a lot about these types of platforms, and I've seen some mixed reviews. Can you give me a link to some testimonials from your top investors?" His response came so quickly that it was almost like he had been waiting for the question. "Sure, I'll send you some. Just don't share them with anyone, okay? These are exclusive clients." A few seconds later, another link appeared. I opened it cautiously. The page was full of glowing testimonials, all with generic names and stock photos. It was almost laughable how poorly the scam was executed. The testimonials were obviously fake, filled with over-the-top praise and empty promises. Yet, James seemed to think this would seal the deal. "Wow, these are impressive," I replied, keeping up the act. "But just to be sure, can you send me a few more? The ones with the bigger returns, like the 10-0 stories you mentioned?" There was a long pause, a moment of hesitation. I could see his fingers typing, backspacing, and typing again, but he couldn't come up with anything good. Finally, he replied, "I don't have those exact testimonials, but trust me, I've personally made over 15-0 using the system. It works. You just need to take that first step." It was like a broken record now. The same pitch over and over, the same promises, the same urgency. But now, I was in control. I was the one holding the cards. "I think I'm almost ready," I typed, drawing out the suspense. "But I need to think about it a little longer. I don't want to rush into anything. Can I get back to you in a day or two?" James's reply came quicker than ever. Of course, but remember, the spots are limited, and we're already down to the last few. The urgency, the pressure, it was all part of the act, but it was starting to get a little too predictable. So, I decided to throw him a curveball. Actually, I typed, I've been thinking, maybe I'll do 500. That way, I can really make a significant return. Can you help me set up that larger deposit? I was starting to lose track of how long I'd been keeping him on the line, but I wasn't about to let up. He had already invested so much time in me, and now I had him wrapped around my finger. The next few days passed in a blur of messages. James, still hopeful that I would eventually make the investment, kept texting me constantly. Each message was more desperate than the last, and his tone became increasingly urgent. But I wasn't in a hurry to take the bait. In fact, I was savoring the game. Just a friendly reminder, one message read, "The investment spots are almost full. This opportunity is too good to pass up. Remember, once you start seeing returns, you'll regret not getting in earlier." I wasn't even close to pulling the trigger. In fact, I'd already set a trap. I had every intention of wasting as much of his time as possible. The scam was already evident, but now I was on a mission to drag it out for as long as I could. Every day, I sent him more questions, more concerns, and more excuses. The moment he'd respond with some half-baked answer, I'd shoot back with another one. I became a master of delay, pushing his patience to the limit. "Can you show me more proof of the system's success?" I typed on day 3. "I've been reading up on similar platforms, and some of the reviews are a little concerning. I want to make sure this is really as good as you say." James was starting to sound worn out. His responses came quicker, but they were less detailed, almost robotic. He must have been getting tired of answering my questions, but the pressure to close the deal was too high. "Everything you need is here," he wrote. "I've already told you everything. You can make money immediately, and the risk is minimal. Just make that deposit, and I'll help you set it up." I wasn't done yet. "Right, but how much can I realistically expect to make in the first week? I'm trying to set a budget for how much I want to invest." I could almost hear the exasperation in his typing, but still, he kept at it. "Well, like I said, some people make 1-0 in a week, but it depends on how much you invest. The more you put in, the more you can potentially make. It's all up to you." That answer didn't sit well with me. The vagueness was part of the manipulation. The goal was to get me hooked with a low-risk promise, only to then push for bigger investments once I was in. But I was patient. I knew that the longer I delayed, the more frustrated he would become. I kept pushing for more details, especially about how the system worked. I asked for explanations of the algorithm James kept mentioning. I wanted him to explain it in layman's terms, even though I knew he had no clue how to do so. "You said the system uses machine learning to make predictions," I wrote. "Can you explain how that works? I'm a bit of a tech nerd and want to understand the mechanics behind it." It was almost like I could see his face freeze up. I knew he was scrambling for a response, trying to figure out how to explain something that didn't exist. But after a few minutes, his reply came. It's a bit complicated," James responded. "But basically, the system scans global market trends, analyzes them, and makes decisions based on patterns it's learned. The more you use it, the more accurate it becomes." I wasn't about to let him off the hook so easily. "Interesting. But can you tell me exactly which markets it scans? Like, does it focus on stocks, cryptocurrency, or something else?" His typing paused. Then the response came. "It's a mix of everything. The system is designed to cover multiple markets simultaneously." I leaned back in my chair, watching the screen, already knowing what he was doing. He was fabricating answers, hoping I wouldn't press for specifics. But I wasn't letting up. The more questions I asked, the more he started to trip over his own lies. "Can you show me the back end of the system? I'd love to see it in action before I make my decision." The question hung in the air. For a moment, I wondered if he would just cut ties with me, realizing I wasn't an easy target. But instead, he came back with a new message. "I don't have access to the back end, but I can assure you it's a top-tier platform. It's proprietary and not something that can be shared. But believe me, it works." At this point, I could tell he was running out of steam. His answers were getting less detailed, and his urgency was increasing. It was only a matter of time before he made a last-ditch effort to get me to deposit. I could feel his desperation rising in each text he sent. One evening, after a particularly long exchange of messages, I decided it was time to take things to the next level. Instead of just asking questions, I would start to pretend like I was ready to go all in. "I've been thinking about it," I typed, "and I'm ready to invest 500. Can you help me set that up?" The silence from his end was deafening. It wasn't until the next morning that I got a reply. "Are you sure? 500 is a big jump, but if you're ready, I'll send you the link right now." I knew he was jumping at the chance. He wanted me to be the next big success story, the next person to rave about how much money they made. But the more I dragged this out, the more he started to reveal how desperate he was. "I think I need just one more day to think it over," I wrote, feigning indecision. "I don't want to make a hasty decision." James didn't take kindly to that. His next message was practically dripping with impatience. "You've been saying that for days now," he replied. "You're not going to find another opportunity like this. Don't let it slip away. I can guarantee you this is the last chance." At this point, I knew it was time to end the charade. He had given me all the information I needed, proof of his desperation, his willingness to stretch the truth, and his eagerness to secure my payment at any cost. But I wasn't ready to drop the final bombshell just yet. "I think I've heard enough," I typed. "But before I make my final decision, can you send me a few more testimonials from real users? Maybe some who've made more than 10-0? The response came almost immediately. "I don't have those testimonials, but please, just deposit the 500, and I'll help you get started right away." This was the moment, the tipping point. He was no longer pretending to be patient. He was pleading, but I wasn't falling for it. "Thanks for your time, James," I wrote, finally revealing my hand. "You've been really helpful, but I'm not interested in investing anymore." The silence on the other end was almost too sweet. A few seconds passed. Then I saw the message pop up. "Wait, what do you mean? Are you sure? I can help you make money. This opportunity is real." I didn't respond. Not this time. I had won. Not only had I wasted his time, but I'd also seen firsthand how these scammers operate. After the final message was sent, the screen in front of me felt oddly quiet. For a moment, I wasn't sure what to expect. Would James try to reach out again? Would he realize that he had been played? Or would he just move on to another victim? Part of me was ready for the possibility that he might come back with an even more desperate plea. But to my surprise, the silence stretched on. The last message I'd sent him, "Thanks for your time, James. You've been really helpful, but I'm not interested in investing anymore," was the end of it. I waited for a couple of hours, just to see if he'd send another message. But there was nothing. It was over. And just like that, I was left sitting in my chair, feeling oddly triumphant. It wasn't that I had pulled off some grand masterstroke, or that I'd outsmarted someone. It was more about the satisfaction of watching a scam unfold, then pulling the rug out from under it when it was most vulnerable. I had wasted his time, fed him just enough hope, and made him work for hours without getting a single dime from me. I had played the long con, and I had won. But as I sat there, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, a strange thought crept into my mind. I had spent all this time carefully navigating through his manipulative sales pitch, feeding him questions, pushing him for answers. Yet I hadn't actually learned anything that would make me better. The satisfaction of wasting his time was sweet, but it didn't feel like a win in the traditional sense. It was a victory against a scammer, sure. But it also left me wondering about the countless others who weren't as aware, who didn't ask enough questions, who didn't spot the red flags or get the chance to waste a scammer's time. How many people did this happen to every day? And how many actually fell for it? This realization stayed with me for the rest of the day, but I didn't want to dwell on it for too long. After all, I had outsmarted a scammer. That was enough for me, at least for now. The next day, I started getting a little bit curious. I had been so focused on keeping James on the hook that I hadn't even considered what would happen if I followed through with one of his fake success stories. What would the scam look like when it fully revealed itself? What happened after someone sent their deposit, believing they were on their way to financial freedom? The thought intrigued me. I wasn't about to risk my own money, but I wanted to know how deep this rabbit hole went. Was there a chance I could get him to admit more of his lies or uncover the final layer of this elaborate scam? A few days later, curiosity got the better of me. I sent James a quick message, just to see if he would reply. "Hey, I've been thinking about it again. Can you resend me that link to get started? I'm ready to deposit the 500. I half expected him to just ignore me, or to throw some half-hearted reply my way. But to my surprise, he responded almost immediately. "Of course, I knew you'd come around. Here's the link again. Let's get you started and make that first 500 together." I could sense the eagerness in his words. This was it, the moment I could expose the scam further. I decided to push just a little more. "You're sure there are no other hidden fees, right?" I typed. "What if I decide to withdraw early?" He didn't waste a second. "No hidden fees at all. Once you invest, you can withdraw anytime. The system is designed to be completely transparent." I didn't respond immediately. I was done with this. I had seen all I needed to see. James was just another cog in the wheel of a scam that had been happening for who knows how long. The urgency in his messages was overwhelming. He wanted me to deposit that 500, and I had no doubt that if I did, I'd be sucked into a cycle of empty promises and fake success stories, just like the others. It was then that I realized something else. He wasn't just after my money. He was after something more: trust. People who fell for these types of scams were not just paying for a non-existent service. They were buying into a narrative, a story that promised quick riches with no effort. All they had to do was take that leap of faith, send their money, and wait for the returns to roll in. But the only thing that rolled in was a lot of empty promises and a rapidly emptying bank account. So I made my decision. I blocked his number. No more messages. No more fake success stories. I wasn't going to be just another statistic in the long list of people who got taken advantage of. I had played my part in making sure that at least one scammer's day wasn't as easy as it seemed. But I also realized that this was just one small victory, a drop in an ocean of people who were far less fortunate. There were countless others who hadn't recognized the red flags or weren't as cautious as I had been. That's when I decided to do something with this experience. I created a blog post detailing everything I had learned during my exchange with James. I broke down the steps of the scam, the techniques they used to build trust, and the subtle ways they pushed for deposits. I even included screenshots, with personal information blurred, of course, so that others could see what these scams looked like in real time. It wasn't much, but it was something. Within a week, I had already received messages from a handful of people who had encountered similar scammers. Some of them had already fallen victim to the same scam. Others were in the midst of negotiations with these con artists, unsure of what to do. I spent the next few days responding to as many people as I could, helping them identify red flags and providing advice on how to avoid falling into the same trap. In the end, this experience wasn't just about outwitting a scammer, it was about spreading awareness. By sharing what I had learned, I could help others avoid the same fate. It wasn't about the money I saved or the time I wasted. It was about preventing others from making the same mistake.